Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a homeowner association formed in my neighborhood, which I'm not a part of, and they insist I must get rid of the solar panels on my roof. They ended up suing me for them and deeply regretting it. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The first one goes like this. I am one of those people that find a place he likes and settle down in it for a long time. So I've been living in the same neighborhood for decades with almost no problems really happening. About 5 years ago though, an HOA was formed and I was the first to say no when it came to deciding if I should join or not. Almost everybody else did, but I heard enough horror stories to want to stay far away from an HOA. Even in my real life, my brothers are part of one and they drive him crazy with dues and going to meetings and all of that crap. I just cannot be bothered with any of it and figured that saying no and not joining would not cause too many issues for me in the long run. The HOA did have a love for coming to my home and trying to constantly get me to join them. I just kept saying no and tried to ignore their constant attempts to bother me into joining. They had speeches about safety, about the neighborhood being unified, amazing projects they were planning, etc. I could see with my own two eyes that the only thing they actually cared about was micromanaging everybody and what they could and couldn't do. This is a free country, and the last thing I want is a bunch of rules with no reasoning behind them. These people were a small nuisance to me, but nothing major. One thing that I found to be more annoying was my electric bill constantly seeming to go up. No matter what I did to try and reduce it, it seemed to be constantly going up in price. I was watching a commercial on TV advertising solar panels, and in the past I always saw it as some kind of scam commercial. This time it got me thinking and looking into it. Long story short, I ended up getting solar panels installed and the money was being saved right away. It was the only house that had these panels, and since they are so visible, it meant there was no hiding it from the neighbors. I'll admit that it looked a little ugly, but anything to save me money was worth it. I guess the HOA president got wind of them because he sent down one of his other members to talk to me about the panels. They only came over to bother me, so I had no impression that it was gonna be a nice visit. Me, what can I help you with this time? HOA, our president noticed those things on your roof. He wants you to remove them right away. Me, those are my solar panels. I'm not getting rid of them and he really doesn't get a say in it. HOA, they are ugly and you're being selfish and not thinking about the value of the homes around you. Me, maybe people will get them and get used to how it looks. Did your president think about that? HOA, nobody's going to have them because the HOA is working on a motion to get them outlawed here. You can remove them now, but if you wait until the new rules are passed, you will face hefty fines. Me, I think you're forgetting that I'm not part of your little HOA. Banning them wouldn't apply to me and you cannot force me to get rid of them. Hell, if you're trying to ban them, maybe I'll run a campaign against yours to show how great solar panels and clean energy are. Let people see both sides of things and decide for themselves instead of letting your president do it for them. HOA guy, you're gonna be sorry you messed with him. If you don't heed any my warning, then I can only wish you luck in what comes next. I had no idea what this person was talking about, but I really didn't care. I knew I was right and she wasn't gonna convince me to get rid of them. A few days passed and I got the notice that the HOA was suing me for $224,000. I had zero clue where this number came from, but I was worried because I'm just a typical guy. I don't have that kind of money if I actually lost. I called and left them voicemails, but the HOA seemed to be ignoring me now. I hired a lawyer in hopes that he could make the whole thing go away, and was relieved when he told me the HOA was actually in the wrong. We went over facts and they showed the HOA really did not have a case against me since I did not break any laws or rules. Instead, I could actually counter-sue them for harassment and emotional distress over the whole thing. Once they got wind that I was fighting back, they got dirty and sent me a threat. It was a naked photo of me that looked like it was taken through my window, with the message that I should not show up for court or it would get leaked everywhere. I told my lawyer about this and he told me that I had to make a choice whether to show up or not. I was not letting them win. I was gonna show up and add blackmailing to my side of the lawsuit. In court, the HOA argued that me not being a member did not matter because the issue was my actions affecting HOA neighborhood members. That the solar panels I installed were gonna cause the prices of all homes to drop and that I was doing it on purpose. Apparently, I had some big scheme to drop house prices and buy them up cheap. Of course, they had no proof to this and it was disregarded by the court. My lawyer stepped in and wanted their case thrown away because in their entire thing they had yet to name a single law I had broken. Even if I was part of the HOA, I had not done anything wrong yet by their standards. I was allowed to use alternative energy to power my home if I wanted to. The HOA's final attempt to sway a judge was saying that because the solar panels were ugly, less people would join the HOA, and then it would become chaos and riots in the streets. The judge had more than enough of their crap and finally forced the HOA president to shut up. The judge told him that the HOA does not have a right to regulate what kind of power I chose to use, especially when I'm not a member. It was thrown out, but now it was time for my countersuit, and that was far more interesting of a result. The judge agreed that the harassment of them and the lawsuit caused me emotional distress, and the HOA would have to compensate me for that, as well as my legal fees for forcing me into an unneeded lawsuit. As for the blackmail that I showed the judge, he was angry and told the HOA that if he wanted to, he could of course also drop criminal charges on top of him. They had to give me even more money because of that, and all their blackmail had to be destroyed. While the money I got at the end was nowhere near what they sued me for, I was glad that I did not owe a penny in the end. The new HOA management ended up being actually scared of me like I did something to them instead of the other way around. My favorite thing being the fact that none of them could stop me from up-talking about the pros of solar panels and how the other neighbors should really look into getting them. 5 years later, some others have joined me, but the best part is the HOA was never successful in banning them. Oh, and by the way guys, I forgot to mention, there was also not really an update to the story, but it was posted like way at the bottom, so I did not really see it. You know, on Reddit there are all these edits and stuff, and I just looked over this one, and it is actually an important update. Either way, OP writes, the HOA president ended up going to jail for a year and had to pay me a fine of $50,000 for his blackmail attempt. Good riddance. So yeah, Ripe Stars, I am very glad to hear that the entitled HOA president got what he deserved. Blackmail is a serious offense, but honestly, in my opinion, if you blackmail someone, you should face even bigger consequences. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also turn on the bell to not miss any of my uploads. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled Maliciously Complied. The phones in my call center are open from 9 AM to 8 PM. I work a later shift from 11:30 to 8. So one week the following happens. On a Monday, I clock into my job at 11:30 AM. I do 5 minutes of setup and start taking phone calls from customers by 11:35. I clock out at 8 PM that night. Sometime during the day, a memo comes down from corporate. Call center representatives should start taking calls the moment their shift is scheduled to start. Tuesday, in order to avoid working off the clock, I clock into my job at 11:15 AM, do 5 minutes of setup, 10 minutes of administrative work, and start taking phone calls from customers at 11:30 AM. When my shift officially then starts, I clock out at 8 PM, having done 15 minutes of overtime that day. Then on Wednesday, in order to avoid working off the clock, I clock into my job at 11:15 AM, do 5 minutes of setup, 10 minutes of administrative work, and start taking phone calls from customers at 11:30 AM, when my shift officially starts. Sometime during the day, a memo comes down from corporate. Overtime is not approved for call center representatives. So I clock out early at 7:45 PM in order to avoid doing overtime. Then on Thursday, start at 11:25 AM and I do 5 minutes of setup. I clock in at 11:30 and start taking calls immediately. I stop working at 7:55, but I don't clock out yet. I'll be damned if I let corporate make me a victim of wage theft. Over the next 5 minutes, a couple calls from last-minute Karens come in. I don't take the calls and at 8 PM I clock out. The customers eventually hang up disappointed. Friday, starting at 11:25 AM, I do 5 minutes of setup, I clock in at 11:30 and start taking calls immediately. Sometime during the day, my boss comes to talk to me. Boss, when you clocked out at 8 last night, there were still customers waiting in the call queue. Why didn't you take their calls? Me, sorry boss, my shift ends at 8 o'clock and overtime is not approved for call center representatives. Boss, oh well, you're allowed to stay late to finish up the customers that call in. Me, sure thing boss. Can I have that in writing as well? Later that day, a memo comes down from corporate. Overtime for business needs is approved for call center representatives. So at 7:59 PM, a last-minute Karen calls in. I help her until 8:05, I clock off 8:15 to make sure I get paid for the extra 10 minutes of work I did. Keep trying, corporate, I am hourly. And yeah, right, stars, I gotta say, this story seemed like it is straight out of a Monty Python episode or something. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. This one is a revenge story. My mom is very blunt, straightforward, and does not take crap from anyone. When she was a junior in college, she moved into an on-campus apartment complex, and what she found when she opened the door were roaches. Lots of roaches. She called the manager of the complex to complain and asked them to come spray. The manager smugly replied, "Cockroaches are not a problem, and besides, there's nothing we can do about them." Later that night, Mom was horrified to find a roach on her toilet paper roll. She had almost used a roach to clean herself. At this moment, she snapped and planned her revenge. She emptied a bottle of applesauce and poked holes in it. The holes were large enough for the roaches to breathe, but small enough so that they would not escape. She then spent the rest of the weekend collecting every single roach in her apartment. Come Monday morning, Mom went to the front office holding the jar behind her back. I asked to speak to the manager, and the manager came out. "Mom, hey, I am OP's mom. I spoke to you on Friday regarding my roach problem, right?" Manager, "Right, and again, it's not a problem." Mom opened the jar of roaches and dumped them on the manager's desk. Manager jumped up and screamed bloody murder. Mom, "What? I thought you said roaches were not a problem?" The manager immediately called an exterminator, and Mom never saw another roach in that apartment. And the next one is an airplane revenge story. Right, as soon as we got on the plane, I knew this guy was gonna be trouble. Let's call him Paul. So Paul was blocking the walkway, having half his body in the aisle, rearranging his backpack for whatever reason, when no one was next to him and he could have just done this in his seat. No big deal, I'll just wait for him to be done. Then Paul insists on me walking around him, which with him being half in the aisle makes it quite hard. My body brushes up against his body, which made him mad even though he told me to go through. Of course, everyone else is trying to board the plane as well and are running into the same issue, and Paul is taking his sweet time. Whatever. My boyfriend and I got the row right behind him and sat down, awaiting the plane to take off. Next offense is when someone is trying to put their bag in the overhead bin and Paul goes ape crap. Starts yelling at this woman that there is glass in his bag and that she cannot put her luggage there. She calmly tells Paul that this space is for everyone and she needs to put her bag there as there is no more room in the other compartments. Paul's wife doesn't think this woman is getting the point, so they start yelling how they are custom wine glasses and that she cannot put her bags there. I was giving this woman props. She stood on the seat to gently rearrange things and kept her calm the entire time despite being yelled at. Of course, this was not good enough for Paul and his wife, who kept muttering under their breath about how stupid she was and that she was gonna ruin their glasses. When we finally get in the air, the baby 1 row behind me, 2 rows behind Paul, starts crying. The baby was not even crying 30 seconds before Paul decides to yell, "Give that kid a bottle." The parents obviously ignore this and calm down their kid within a minute or so. Now throughout the flight, the baby cried a couple more times, each time lasting no longer than 3 minutes. A very good baby. Paul, however, was not pleased, and each time the baby cried, he would turn around and give the parents the stink eye, then get up and walk around. I kept hoping the baby would cry just so he would have to listen to it. I'm a very shy person, so I wasn't about to confront him, and my boyfriend, who was in the seat behind him, had his headphones on and was not aware of what was going on. So I hatched a plan for my petty revenge to make his plane ride as unpleasant as possible. What did I do? I clued in my boyfriend on the situation and had him join my cause. He opened and shut the tray table multiple times for his laptop. He sat with his knees in Paul's seat. He kept putting his water bottle in the pocket behind the seat and taking it out. I kept accidentally hitting his seat when I would go to cross my legs, and I turned my AC on full blast and pointed it his way. I ate my chips as loud and slow as possible. I coughed multiple times very loudly. All of this would make Paul stare at us and then complain to his wife. "I hope your custom wine glasses broke, douchebag." And the next one is titled, "Girlfriend's Family is Ridiculous." I, male 48, have a girlfriend, Maria, female 40, that I've been seeing for 2 years. I live in the northeast USA. I also have a dog called Boots, male 3, and Boots is a working dog breed but is well behaved and loved by my friends and neighbors. He has the run of the house, and I also have a big fenced-in backyard for him to run around in. Mariah grew up in the south on a farm. She has been around dogs before, but they've always been outside dogs that worked the farm and slept in the barn or kennels. She never had an indoor dog like Boots, and it was an adjustment to get used to him, but she loves him now, and she did mention to me that her mother would never get used to an indoor dog and would absolutely not allow a dog in the kitchen. Mariah's, or Maria's, I'm not exactly sure, mom and brothers wanted to visit her, but Mariah lives in a small one-bedroom apartment and does not have the room for them. Their family also cannot afford a hotel. Mariah asked if the family could stay in my house. My house has plenty of space, so I agreed. They came and things mostly went well, but as expected, Mariah's mom kept making comments about Boots being allowed indoors and how that was not right. I told them gently that I will keep Boots from bothering them, not allowing him in their bedrooms, trying to keep him underfoot, but this is my house with my rules and Boots gets to hang indoors with me. Aside from being around, Boots didn't do anything to provoke them. He generally chills in whatever room I am in unless someone is actively playing with him. One morning I woke up late and came downstairs to see Mariah's family making and eating breakfast. I noticed that Boots was not around and I asked where he was. Mariah's mom said, "Dogs don't belong in the kitchen, so we put him outside." I was slightly annoyed, but Boots likes being outside, so I figured it wasn't a big deal. I looked out the window thinking I would see him on my back deck, his usual spot, but he was not there. I stepped outside to find him and still could not see him. I went around the corner of the house and found Boots tied up to the fence using rope from kindling bundles I have for my fire pit. After untying Boots, I went back inside and asked Maria's mom why they tied up my dog. She said that dogs should not be allowed to run around and she was just treating him like a dog should be treated. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house. Maria and her mom called me an a-hole because they had nowhere else to go. I said that was their problem. If they couldn't respect me and my dog, they had to get out. So Reddit, am I the a-hole here? And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about this story? Is OP the a-hole or not? I mean, honestly, if someone would come to my house, or rather, I would let them stay at my house and they would mistreat Disney or kick her out or something, I would probably be the first person to kick them out instead. Either way, let me know what you would have done if this were your dog. A user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, let's be honest, putting him outside would have sufficed. They tied him up to prove a point and you proved your point by kicking their asses out." Comment number 2, not the a-hole, and Maria's an a-hole for allowing them to do that. They could have just let him run around the yard, but they went an extra step and tied him for no logical reason. I hope they found a crappy pet-friendly motel to stay in and that the dogs there are barking up a storm for most of the day. And yeah guys, I have to 100% agree with the comments here. I would say no mercy for these pet-hating douchebags. Anyway, update to the story. It is not clear from my post, but Maria did not know about or condone Boots' treatment. She was worried about her family being put out. Maria in fact loves Boots and spoils him worse than I do. For example, she often takes him on long walks and she insisted on holding a birthday party for him, complete with cupcakes. And by the way, I've never heard of cupcakes before, but now I am intrigued. I'm wondering if kitty cakes also exist. And the next one is titled Malicious Compliance on Landlord. So my best friend had moved out of state with her family for several years. She was never really happy there as she is a small town country girl in a big city. So when her marriage dissolved, she decided she needed a change. She was homesick but did not want to go back home. She wanted to live close enough that she could visit often, and she wanted to be in a similar setting to home. While on a camping trip, she fell in love with a small town that was about 5 hours from her children's father and about 6 hours from her hometown. Looking around the town, she finds a small house that is for rent and she decides to reach out to the owner about the details. It's not a great house, it looks terrible. Hence why I call it the crack shack, but nothing that some hard work and a little bit of money could not fix. The landlord tells her that the house is livable, but it is definitely a fixer-upper. It's been vacant for a while and they just recently had a man that kept breaking in at night but assured her the cops were aware and the guy had not been back in months. However, he had done a lot of damage. He was willing to make a deal with her. If she was willing to pay for supplies, he would reimburse her, and if she would do the work on the house and pay all of the utilities, he would not charge her rent until the repairs were complete. He would also draw up legal documents that if she decided she wanted to buy, he would sell it to her for $15,000, as in its current state it was not worth more than that. She thought it over a bit and insisted on having the legality of it all taken care of prior to move-in day, and he agreed. Over the next few weeks, paperwork starts flowing in, she reads it, signs it, sends it back. Before she can move in, she needs to make a couple of minor repairs: a plumbing issue, a damaged ceiling, and 2 broken doors. She does this, sends him the receipts, registered mail, keeps a copy for herself, and a few days later she gets notification that he signed for the letter. A week goes by, then 2, then 3, and then nothing. She tries to call him, no answer. She emails, sends a letter, nothing. A neighbor tells her the guy is having health issues and has been in the hospital, so for sure that has to be the holdup, so she moves in on schedule and continues repairing the house. Fast forward a year, she has cleaned up the junked up yard, replaced all the doors and storm doors, repaired several windows, plumbing, electrical, even replaced the hot water tank, repaired the furnace, and the supplies have arrived to fix the roof. When who finally appears in her mail. The landlord pops up, explains he has been in and out of the hospital, but he has received all of the receipts and photos of the work, everything looks good, I'll be in touch. So she starts getting together a team of friends who all have experience in roof work. The day before they are supposed to start, another email comes in. After speaking to my attorney, I have decided that you've been squatting in my house for 1 year without having paid any rent. The amounts on your receipts are unreasonable and I won't be repaying you for the work you have done. I will forgive the first 3 months of your time there. This should more than compensate you for the work already done, and not even close to the cost of supplies. You have 15 days, which is the minimum notice allowable in her state, to pay the sum of $9,000 or move. If you refuse, legal action will be taken. So she replies, reminding him of the lease she signed and the agreement they made, and he responds with, "My lawyer has no record of a lease on file. When he sent your copy to you, the post office returned it, so technically it's null and void if I say it is. Proof that we ever made this agreement." So she dug through her records, sent him copies of every email he sent her laying out the terms. Thinking he's older, he's been having health issues, maybe he just does not remember. He comes back with, "I don't remember any of that." She also had saved voicemails that he had left on her phone, including one where he says, "We received your signed lease. You cannot start the repairs and move in when you are ready. Don't forget to send me all the receipts related to home repairs." She offers up a compromise of, "I will eat up the full cost of repairs and pay all the utilities. I'll pay a reduced price in rent to compensate me for my time and money put in." She even made an offer that she would eat the cost of the repairs and start paying rent going forward, but asked that he accept the work already done to compensate her for the repairs already made, which even this was a deal where the landlord made out better, as she had put more money into everything at this point and she only made repairs according to a previously agreed upon list. "Well, we can certainly try to work out a new deal, but I'm still not paying these receipts. You're going to start paying rent. If you want to buy the house, it's going to be $30,000. In this area, even after the repairs, he would be lucky to sell it for this." She tells him she needs to think about his offer, but she doesn't. She calls me as I can be creative. I tell her first to talk to a lawyer. She did, and while the lawyer thought with all of the correspondence she could probably win the case, she decided the house was not worth it to her. So then she called the landlord back and tells him, after careful consideration, I'm going to have to decline on this offer as I wouldn't have agreed to it before moving in. He then tries to negotiate another deal, still a horrible one, still did not include repayment of any sort for the work she put into it, and says this is the final offer, accept it or get out. This is where I came into the story. Since he was unwilling to pay for the repairs, I sat down and made a list of everything she had done to that house and devised the following plan. One by one, she and the team that was supposed to help fix the roof went through the house and unfixed everything she had previously repaired. The new doors were removed, the old ones were still stored in the garage, took down all the drywall she had put up but had not yet finished, removed all pipes, fittings, fixtures, appliances and every last shingle that was meant for the roof and made a few calls and sold every bit of it to a family friend who happened to be in need of some home repair of his own. A month after she was gone, she received another email from him, insisting that she pay up or move out. This is where she replied with, "I'm sorry, our business concluded a month ago when I moved to the next town over. No need to pay me back for my hard work on your house, as I have removed everything that I paid for in order to recoup my cost. I left the house in precisely the same condition as I found it, minus the several dumpsters full of garbage I had to remove from the house and property before I could even begin the repairs. According to my calculations, this fact alone should bring us even up." That was a year ago, and once in a while she still gets the random email from him insisting she owes him money. She no longer replies. And yeah guys, I would say you cannot get any better revenge on an awful landlord. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.